The Empowerment Show aims to equip individuals with the necessary tools, knowledge, and confidence to make informed decisions and take control of their lives. It also focuses on ensuring access to essential resources and the opportunities.
Well, good evening. It's 5 o'clock. Here we go again. We got Stevenson and Yates, and we're going to talk some politics. When we say politics, we talking about actual politics and things that are going around in our country, things that make a difference to us right now today. Like, for instance, we got this big better bill, and unfortunately, it's been passed. So now we'll have to deal with the ramifications of that big better bill. What's happening, brother Yates? How are you today?
I'm doing well, brother. How about yourself?
I don't know, man. I'm kind of down about that bill, man. I don't. It
Well,
really
it has to go back to the House, right? It did pass the Senate by, I think, one vote, but it has to go back to the House. And the Democrats are saying they're going to fight as hard as they can, as hard as they possibly can, to prevent this bill from ever getting to the president's desk.
look. Didn't all of the Democrats vote nay? They said no, and then you had three Republicans that said no when it came down to a 50-50 vote, and it came down to Vance. He was the deciding vote.
Now that tells you about this bill. This is a Republican-sponsored bill. Yet the Republicans won't even pass it, right? They have to get Vance to come in to break the tie and to advance the bill to go to the House. In the House, it may be somewhat tougher to get this bill passed. So I suspect that in the long run, Trump will pressure the Republican Party. Like he said, a couple of Republican senators have said they're not going to seek re-election. And I guess it's for two reasons. One, the provisions in this bill are going to, the deep cuts to Medicaid, to Medicare, to food assistance programs and others, is really going to hurt many of their constituents, so they know they can't be re-elected. And because they were hesitant to sign the bill, Trump talked about primary. Now there's another issue. Elon Musk has resurfaced, and he said if it's the last thing he does, he will spend his money against all of those who signed on to this bill. So the Republicans right now in a tight spot.
Sounds like you got a lot of in-house fighting right now as well. And then Elon Musk, he's not really in-house, but he's got a lot of money. And let's see if he throws that money towards the Democrat, and what will happen when the next voting, when it's time to come around to vote again. How will that money be utilized? But right now, we got to deal with this Trump situation, and it's not going to be very good for us. Yeah, I'm on Social Security. I'm a senior. I use Social Security. I use the Medicare. So I'm still looking around now. I'm trying to count my dollars and cents and check my savings, make sure I have enough to take care of myself and my wife. But we're put in that situation now, and we should not be in that situation, especially by some people who don't give a damn about us. Really, they don't care about the American public. They can say that they care about the American public and American people all they want, but what they're showing their true colors, and their true colors. The only thing that they care about is that 1%. The only thing that they care about is making them trillions of dollars, so that they can give these 1% their tax break. In addition to that, so that Trump can get richer off of it, because from what I can see, he's been making a lot of money here from that bully pulpit. Okay, that presidential bully pulpit.
Well, he has, right? There's no question that Trump's, I think his net worth has increased by about $2 to $2.5 billion just since taking office, and what are we, 7 months in? So even though the Republican Party is the party allegedly of fiscal responsibility, of small government, the party of individual freedom, all that is going out the window. And now
the government agency, he's weaponized them already, and he's fired all the top heads.
Well, what's clear is this: um, those elected members of Congress are not clearly not in the business of representing those that elect them and send them to Washington. Their allegiance is to one person only, and that's Donald Trump. And I really don't understand it. And, as it relates to this bill has more than 900 pages. No one has read this bill. It's like handing somebody one of those I'm talking old school King James Bibles that had, your name and who gave it to you and all the family members. I'm talking about one of those thick old school Bibles, right? Hand you one of those in June and say, now look, by July 4th, I want you to know this backwards and forwards, Genesis to Revelations. Unless you are going to devote every waking hour to reading the scripture, you're not going to be prepared. You're not going to know everything.
And I know even sitting there reading it back and forth, you still may not know it as well as you think, because now you're talking about retention.
Exactly. And this bill, no one has read it. It's 900 pages. How do you expect someone to read 900 pages and absorb and understand the material? Right?
Yeah, I think some of the Republicans and some of the guys there said that they hadn't even read the bill, but they signed it anyway.
And that is just, an example of how their allegiance is to Trump, not the American people. Because, just some of the highlights of this bill, and I just want to mention a few of them. The primary reason for this bill is to tax someone to extend the 2017 tax package that he signed. He wants to make that permanent. So what that'll do is give a $4 trillion tax cut to the wealthiest Americans. But what will it do to people like you and I? Well, you just said you're on Medicaid, right? Deep cuts to Medicaid. For those people in this country that, utilize different food subsidies, things like SNAP, deep cuts to SNAP. Just last year, even before this bill was introduced on the Senate floor, there were cuts to education. Things like cutting milk away from school lunches.
Taking away school lunches altogether. They don't even want to fund school lunches, period.
And what percentage of the U.S. budget the school lunches make up? What, 1%, if that? How much are you saving? But it doesn't matter, because it's not about being fiscally responsible. This is about tax cut.
If they were going to be physically responsible, then we'd be talking about this deficit, because all he keeps doing, even with the tax cuts, with the tariffs, all these other little things that he's doing, the corrupt things that he's doing, the deficit is still going up.
Well, the deficit is going to increase by about $3.3 trillion, right? And he also wants to raise the debt ceiling to $5 trillion. So basically, we're talking within the next 10 years, an additional $3.3 trillion in debt. And who's going to pay for this? So
maybe he'll pay for it with those with the crypto coins. He'll just slide a few dollars to us and he'll take care of that. All the billions he's going to make from that.
That's not going to happen. The money that he's making for him and the Trump organization and his family members has nothing to do with the American people. That is totally separate. And this is something that there are laws on the books, like the emoluments clause from the Constitution said you can't do this while you're in office. But Trump is a law, all to itself.
Well, anybody that can do something about it, he pretty much got rid of.
Exactly.
And then he put people in their place, like the CDC. Oh my God, this guy. Have you ever listened to this guy speak, with Robert F. Kennedy?
I try not to.
Well, I've been listening to. They have these little. I don't want to say trials, but these little interviews that they have, like with what's her name, Linda McMahon, and then they'll have it with RFK. Well, the one that they have with RFK, he's an idiot, man. I'm not kidding you. When they ask him questions, I don't know. I don't know. Well, I didn't handle it. Everything is I don't know. They'll ask him, well, you just fired this person. This is the person you just fired. Well, I don't know. I mean, this guy is really a real total idiot. I'm not kidding you. And Linda McMahon, she wants to play I'm the bully. You got to hear her in these little sessions. She wants to be the tough woman in the session. That's what she wants to be. And these people, I'm telling you, man, none of these people, even Sutton, the guy Sutton in charge of HUD, none of these people give a damn about the American people. I'm just wondering how much are their pockets going to be lined after all said and done, when it's all washed away. How much richer are they going to come out of this? Because we're going to come out poorer. We're going to come out paying more money in taxes. We're going to come out with less of everything. Institutions for education, research for cancer, research for heart, all the different research. They're defunding. So what is going to be left for us? Nothing.
Not much. And, unless the American people decide, or we come to the realization that enough is enough and begin to speak out, then there won't be much left. But see, you got to understand something. And my wife and I are talking about this earlier. Trump is not the smartest person. Trump is crafty. Trump has been taught by people like Roy Cohn to always be on the attack, to never admit you're wrong, to never say sorry. And he understands his people, the people that support him, that MAGA base. He understands them. He knows how to speak to them. They, on the other hand, are not really paying attention. So let me just give you an example. Today, Trump was down in Florida, and he's opening up a new immigration center, undocumented migrant center. They call it Alligator Alcatraz. Now, Trump said he was going to deport the worst of the worst. Is that who he's deporting?
No.
He's randomly locking up people who are black and brown.
Yep.
But
these guys go out with the mob mentality. I'm sorry, but they have this mob mentality. So with this mob mentality, it doesn't matter. They're gonna come after you and they're gonna arrest you. Even when you show them ID, they can say you got fake ID. They're still gonna arrest you. They're gonna put you in the chains. They're gonna process you through the system, and maybe they'll ship your ass off to El Salvador, or maybe now down to Florida. Who knows?
Well, the reality is that these centers are going to go up around the country, right? He just allocated in this bill. He wants to increase immigration enforcement budget by $46.5 billion. So these roundups are only going to get bigger, larger roundups. More people are going to be taken into custody. And with these people protesting, as these protests grow in size and become more vociferous, Trump is going to start locking those people up too. He's already tested the waters. He's been trying to send people to places like Libya and to other countries, and we don't even have an agreement with. He's testing the waters. Can I deport Americans? Can I do so without them first going through the criminal justice system, without them having hearings? Like Trump said, right? Oh, now they want us to have hearings. No, this is not now. This has always been the law in this country. The Constitution just didn't get written and signed last week. So he's talking about, oh, they want us to have hearings. It would take us 1,000 years. Well, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes if you're going to operate within the framework of the law. But we all know
the frames of democracy. Because democracy says we have due process. We have due process of the law. And everybody is subjected to due process of the law.
Well, we should be. But that is something that he is working on changing, right? I mean, you have to understand that for the past probably 30 years or more, there has been a movement to have a constitutional convention. And some of these same people that are part of the Heritage Foundation part of this extreme right wing are the people who want to have a constitutional convention, who want to change segments of the Constitution to suit them. They don't really care about the average of, working class and poor Americans. They want to, the idea is to remain in power. And how we're going to do that, we're going to strip you of your rights. We're going to build these detention centers. And we're not going to be put in them. It's going to be you. You Americans who don't agree with our policies, you're the ones who are going to find stuff in places like Alligator Alcatraz.
Is that what they call it? Alligator Alcatraz? Is that
it's a new detention center down in southern Florida, basically in a swamp, right? Surrounded by, swamp creatures, alligators, huge mosquitoes, huge snakes. So the idea is you put it there, who's likely to escape? You have to make it to, an alligator infested swamp to get, to get free.
So then a lot of them have to go through those type of processes even to get into the United States to begin with. Then they have to cross all kind of land and go through all kind of terrain in order to just make it to the United States.
Well, it depends. If you're talking about people coming up from Central South America, it's a tough voyage. It is. It's arduous. If you're talking about people coming here from places like Poland, Russia, Israel, it's a little bit different. They're
not locking them up.
They're not locking them up. In fact,
no, they're welcome into the country.
Farmer, and you say, "Oh, well, there's a genocide going on in South Africa that only we are aware of, us and our president, Dr. Mr. Trump." Then you can come here, and you don't have to worry about immigration. You don't have to worry about being arrested or detained. You just show up and ask for land.
How is that? How can they get away with that? This is what I don't understand. What happened to the impeachment? How about we're tired of this because you're robbing the poor, man, in order to put more money in the rich people's pockets. And I mean, you don't care if people are going to be without medical care. You don't care. You don't care if children are going to be without food. You don't care. The only thing you care about is putting money in the rich people's pocket. And then you turn around and say that I love America. How can you do that? Isn't that an oxymoron?
Is it Trump an oxymoron?
Yeah, right.
But the reality is Trump is doing this with the consent of many of the American people, right? Even though his bill, his big, beautiful bill, which is just a big, ugly monstrosity, people in this country, the polls are showing that people are against this bill. And what's interesting, they're against the bill, but they still support Trump. It's almost illogical. Trump is the one that is basically behind the bill. Trump, the Heritage Foundation, and others are the ones who are pushing for this bill.
Say it again, brother. That Heritage Foundation. Remember them?
Yeah.
A lot of people hear the word Heritage Foundation and they think that these people are actually someone who's there to protect the integrity of Americans and the culture of America, but they're not. That's some of the racist people on the planet, man. They're here to destroy. That's why they're down with Captain Chaos.
Well, they are the extreme right wing. They are the people that want to take America back to a time when people were enslaved, women were not allowed to hold certain positions. Basically, women were at home, barefoot and pregnant. They're trying to roll back the clock. They're trying to reshape and reorder the entire planet. Their stated goal is to Christianize the world, first America, and then the world. But this has nothing to do with Christ or Jesus. This has everything to do with their view. What is right? What is religious? What is righteous? They want to be the ones to make that determination.
Okay, then we're back to the superiority nonsense. Someone's inferior, someone's superior. That's what it comes down to. But in actuality, in the real world, we are the global majority. People that look like us, people have color, they're not the global majority, even though they want to have the global power. That's what they want. They want to have power over everyone. But yeah, people are rising up, man. I mean, we see what's happening down there in Burkina Faso and Ghana and Niger and the different countries there. People are like, they're tired, man. Get out. We don't want you. And that's going to happen here too. People are going to get tired here too. And it's going to be like, look, man, when these people don't have enough money that they can buy food for their kids, they stop getting their medical check. They go to the doctor, and they won't what do they call it? They won't say it's okay for them to have certain procedures. They won't approve it because of the funding. I've seen that happen already. There's a young lady. She's a diabetic, and she's on Medicare, Medicaid, and they're refusing to pay for her insulin.
Well, you know what? Every year, a number of people in this country die simply from lack of health care, right? They either can't afford it, don't have it, or don't have adequate health care. And when you go, everybody knows when you go into a hospital or any doctor's office, question number one is, what insurance do you have? And if you don't have insurance, let's be realistic. I think all of us who pay attention will know that there have been hospitals that have literally dumped people on the street. I mean, we've seen some of these exposés where people have been literally dumped on the street. Does it violate the Hippocratic Oath? Yes. But in today's world, it's all about profit. And everything seems to be driven by profit. That is what is motivating this whole thing. This big bill, this big beautiful bill, which is a big ugly monstrosity.
I don't even mind profit, but profit for all of America. See, when you only got the 1% profiting, and you look out there and you see homeless people lying out in the street, you see people that can't get food when they open their refrigerator. You see crime on the rise, because that's going to be on the rise. You see, it's going to be difficult for people to get jobs because there won't be the jobs that won't be there for them. When we start going crazy, maybe somebody will listen then. Maybe. Because I think it's coming to that point, man. I think it's coming to a head. I think this man really needs to be impeached, him and the rest of the people that are up there, the ones that all claim about they're doing this for the American people. They need to stop lying to the American people.
Well, I think the only way that we can have some normalcy is to scrap the whole system. This whole system that we call a democracy, which has never been a democracy. Never been, never was, never will be.
So you don't think there's ways that we can at least fix it? Because that, what I hear is when I hear like that, I hear that we're throwing out the baby and the bathwater.
Well, you know something? You have to understand something. We call it a democracy, but just look at the conditions in America. When have we had a democracy? And when has this democracy worked and been fair for everyone?
It hasn't been.
Exactly. That's why it's never been a democracy, and it never will be. Because from the beginning, this country, or the 13 colonies, were controlled by wealthy white men. Yeah, and here we are, 250 some odd years later, and who is still in control? Predominantly wealthy white men. You think about somebody like Elon Musk. Elon Musk, one man, has more money than some countries. Jeff Bezos, between the two of them, they could probably fund or end hunger in Africa. Definitely in this country.
Well, Africa's taking care of itself now. They're not looking for any handout, but I got what you're saying.
Right. I'm just saying they have the resources to do, right? Mm-hmm. But they don't have the willingness, because it's all about profit. It's all about more power, more control. And of course, control is something that you have to agree to give people control. It's like if you watch some of these demonstrations, right? The police will form a static line across, say, a street or a boulevard, and there will be people who will be a distance away. If you look at the crowd, there'll be more people, more protesters than police officers.
All right.
You remember when George Floyd was killed?
Right.
And we saw the images of the 3 officers holding George Floyd down till eventually George Floyd died as a result of being held down and inability to breathe. Well, there were a number of people on the sidewalk watching it. These people, some of them were going for the police that were holding George Floyd down to stop them, to try to do something to protect the life of George Floyd. You remember how many cops were holding back the crowd on the sidewalk?
Wasn't many.
It was one. One, that little Asian cop, 2 times. One cop. See, our belief is that the police are here to enforce the law, to maintain the social structure, to protect.
The problem with that is that a lot of the law enforcers, they forget that they're law enforcers and they think that they're lawmakers. They think that they're the ones. I'm the law.
And because of that, NC people accept that, right? People see a badge and they say, okay, I'm going to be subordinate to the badge, even when a murder is being committed right in front of you. If these guys didn't have uniforms and people took action and defended the life of, say, George Floyd, they would be held as heroes.
I think guns too would kind of make that difference too. I mean, people are afraid of. People are afraid if I jump in there, I'm going to get arrested, and I don't want to get involved with it.
Well, but the thing is this: if you're committing a murder on television, and people who have a right, anybody can make a citizen's arrest. Anybody goes out in the street to prevent the death of another or preserve the life of another, they can arrest you, but everything is on video. The officer, Derek Chauvin, is in prison. Why? Because everything was on camera. It was beamed around the world. There were protests as far away as Japan and Australia because people saw what happened.
Yeah, but right away, that intervention to get involved with it right away, right when it's happening, a lot of people are afraid they're not going to get involved. It's the same scenario. Let's say you live in a tenement house. Remember I was telling you about tenement house, and you got the drug dealers. They're right outside. They're dealing drugs right in front of your building. No one in the building is going to step up because it's a fear factor.
And that you're exactly right. And the same thing with law enforcement, right? People outnumber law enforcement, probably 10,000 to 1. We consent to be governed by the police and by our government, right? It is government by consent. What happens when we say to the government, we're not going to consent anymore? And the problem is that people have an inability, some kind of blockage that prevents them from changing. What happened on January 6th is still fresh in many of our memories, but obviously not in the memories of members of Congress. Some of whom were there that day. And yet, here they are, jamming a bill down our throats that's going to take away health care, take food off the table of our children, fund immigration, give them another $46 billion to continue to round up friends and neighbors.
How much are they giving to build a wall?
That may be included in that outlay to DHS and
along with the slush fund.
Well, let's be real.
Military.
They're not even talking about building a wall anymore. That boat, that ship is kind of safe. It isn't really about building a wall anymore, right? Because if you build a wall, that'll cost billions of dollars. And the idea is, forget building a wall when we can take that money and give it to rich people in the form of a tax cut. But we're not talking about the wall anymore. We're not trying to add, we're not trying to create expenditures, we're trying to cut them. And that's what we're doing.
Well, maybe on at least a different note, they came to a ceasefire with Gaza, with not the Palestinians, with Iran and Palestine, the Jews. They came to some sort of peace fire. How long do you think that's going to last? That ceasefire?
Well, you know what? I don't think it's going to last very long. I think that Israel. So Netanyahu's coming here next week, and I think he's coming here simply for rearmament, for additional funding to continue fighting the war. And I think just yesterday I saw on the news where Israel launched an attack on Gaza, and there was an explosion at an outdoor cafe. People sitting down, having coffee with their families, blown to bits. What threat did they pose to Israel?
They don't. You know what threat they pose? The same threat that the natives pose to the pilgrims here. The same threat.
Right.
They don't have to pose a threat. It's look. You already know they want to take that land for their own. Well, and they don't want it for anyone else. For their own.
You know what?
Watch when they take that land. Watch what I tell you. They're gonna.
When you talk about taking land, right? We're talking about Syria. We're talking about Lebanon. We're talking about Saudi Arabia. All of this, they want to be part of Greater Israel or Eretz Yisrael. And you can look this stuff up. This is stuff that Netanyahu has been talking about, and this is stuff that has been planned for decades. And unless our government tells Netanyahu no, he's going to go forward with this plan. And thus far, not a single elected official or president, for that matter, ever said to Benjamin Netanyahu, the answer is no. We fought in Iraq and Afghanistan for Israel. We bombed Iran for Israel. We took out Muammar Gaddafi for Israel. And the list goes on and on and on. Our government refuses to say no to the Israeli government.
I just hope that they leave my man alone, especially, you know what I'm talking about, in Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré. I hope you just leave that brother alone, because he's doing really great things in that country. And he's really doing the Pan-African thing, bringing other countries together, uniting. I would love to see a United States of Africa. Or what is it? Al-Kibulan. Al-Kibulan. There you go. Kibulan.
I'll tell you something, right? I think that there's always the threat of taking out those leaders that do not fall in line with the colonial power or U.S. foreign policy. But I think that for Captain Traoré and others in Africa, I think it's too late for America and the other colonial powers now. Once you get the slave off the plantation and they tasted freedom, it's hard to get them back into slavery again. And I don't think that these people who have formed the Sahel, these Sahel nations that have formed the coalition, I don't think they're keen to being enslaved anymore. I don't think they're keen to having France dictate to them. I don't think they are interested in having the colonial powers come over and load up truckloads of gold and ship it back to Europe. Those days are over. And yet, I know that our government and the colonial powers, of course, they have Captain Traoré and others in mind, but right now they have bigger fish to fry. They have a situation where Trump just told the European allies, you're going to pay more from your budget to defend Europe. America will no longer be the lead nation in terms of providing for your safety. Spain has said, we're not going to contribute that amount. And Trump says, well, we think you will. So there is division amongst the European allies. And
Yeah,
Europe has to
Trump
also.
will exploit.
I'm sorry.
Trump will exploit that. He's good at that, especially when
Well,
you got one side against the other. He's good at coming in the middle and exploiting it.
well, he'll try, but I think what France, England, Germany, I think their focus is, well, look, if we can't raise this money to add the additional funds to NATO, and Trump backs out of the commitment to NATO and pulls U.S. troops out, what's to stop Vladimir Putin from raining hell into Western Europe?
I thought we already dropped out of NATO.
We haven't. That meeting that Trump went to recently was about, strengthening NATO and to get the European allies.
The one he walked out on?
Well, I think that was an economic forum that he walked out of.
G7, wasn't it G7, something like that?
Right. Yeah. So, but that was separate from the NATO meeting, right? I believe he stayed for the NATO meeting. And of course, he demanded more from the European allies. And like I said, Spain was asked to contribute 5%, and Spain is so far, kind of rebuffed what he's saying, like, no, we're not going to destroy our economy in order to put more boots on the ground and more war material into Western Europe aimed at Russia. We're not going to do that. And you know something? One of the things I believe that caused the collapse of the former Soviet Union was the former Soviet Union government trying to keep pace with America's research and development and subsequent procurement of weapons. They couldn't keep pace. America spends more on killing people, more on missiles, bombs, bullets, guns than any 5 industrial nations combined. All of Europe. We spend more than all of Europe combined on weaponry.
Well, we just become more efficient killers.
How is that sustainable?
We become more efficient killers. And what did I tell you about the slush fund? They have a slush fund for the military. So the military is always going to get money.
Yeah, but what we're doing is we're draining our economy, right? So we're putting so much into the military. We're not reinvesting into America, the American people. So what's happening is all of our funding that we pay in foreign taxes is going to one thing. I mean, the man is cutting Medicaid. He's cutting Medicaid. He's cutting food programs, but he wants to give tax cuts to billionaires, and he wants to beef up the military.
Think about this,
Let's be realistic. It has to be across the board.
You know why this is happening? I'll tell you. Because we decided to give up our freedoms. That's what we did. We gave up our freedoms for what we call safety. Trump promised that he can do this, he can do that, we can do that, and we gave up our freedom for it.
Well, you know what?
Those that voted for him anyway.
I'm not really going to blame Trump, because I remember after 9/11, people in this country volunteered to give up their rights. They said, look, in order for us to protect you from the terrorists that are lurking around every corner, you're going to have to surrender some of your constitutional rights. And people didn't. You never surrender your rights, because once they take them, you never get them back.
Yeah, stop and frisk. That was one of the big things. All right, so what are we going to do? What's happening with you on Thursday?
Thursday, I don't really have any plans as of yet.
No, I mean, you're going to do your thing on Thursday, right?
Oh, yeah. Well,
what you got going on?
You're going to be there, because, the next day is the 4th, so I don't know if he's going away. I'll reach out to him tomorrow.
All right, well, let me know what's happening. Okay. Yeah, Friday's the 4th, so we're not going to do anything this Friday.
Right.
So I'm probably not going to see you again until Tuesday. What you doing on the 4th?
I haven't made any plans yet. My wife and I talked about going down to Atlantic City. We'll see.
We got some stuff going on out here in Stroudsburg. Fireworks, kids painting, all that, face music, all that good stuff. Somewhere in Stroudsburg and off of Main Street, somewhere I was reading about it.
But that's a possibility.
Yeah, I think I might snatch up my grandkids and take them down there. It's free. You don't have to pay to get in. Free admission.
Well, my sister's birthday is July 4th. My brother's tomorrow. My sister's July 4th. So who knows? Depending on what they're doing, we may run down and celebrate with her. She's in Maryland, so we'll see. Yeah.
Well, tomorrow I got a guy named Chacon coming in. His name is Deshaun Chacon, and he's with the Pocono Youth Council, or your Pocono Youth Council. He helps out the youth here. They have the program here. They help the youth get jobs and the whole nine. He's gonna sit down and run it all down to me tomorrow. So, and next week I got the singer coming on. That's she'll be here and she'll be doing her thing. In addition, I got there's a rapper that will be coming on too on the 9th, and he does gospel rap.
Okay.
So that's kind of like my lineup for the rest of the month, So, anyway, so look, let's we'll talk again on Tuesday because you're probably not gonna,
sounds good.
And then we can discuss all the things that took place during this week, because there's going to be a lot of kickback, a lot of things are going to go on about this passing of the bill. And I don't think this is going to be the end of it. So you're probably going to have more mass protests. What do we have? 5 million people that protested the last time. Let's see how many protests now.
Something like that. And these things are going to get bigger, because people, I think, are slowly beginning to wake up from the haze, right? And they're realizing what lies ahead. This bill passes, they realize that a lot of stuff that they rely on for their daily survival is going to be gone.
You said a bad word. You said woke.
Right. I did.
You can't be woke, man.
Right.
That would be a horrible thing.
In this country, it is.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the Stevenson and Yates. I'm not even gonna cut him off. I usually just put myself out there, but I like the way he looks today. I like that little brown with the more picture of Muhammad Ali up on the top. So we're just gonna go out just like this. I usually tell people to be yourself because everybody else is taken. That's not from me. That's actually a quote from someone else. My thing is I like to see peace to the world. I really hope that happens one day, but peace comes at a price. The same like freedom. Freedom ain't free. Peace is not free. And as we can see in Gaza and across the rest of the world, people are paying a price for their freedom. Here in America, we're paying big prices for our freedom. So I like to say peace, please.
Peace.
And we're out. Oh, check out the ending. You may enjoy the ending too.